What is the difference between something good and something great? To me, they are different measures entirely. Good is a reflection of something's quality, the caliber of the building blocks, the level of execution. These composite parts of the whole can be improved upon to make something better. The sliding scale from bad to good is easily envisioned, tangible. Greatness to me is something entirely more nebulous. The best way I can put it is that greatness is the measure of something's uniqueness. That special something sets the great apart from everything else. I like this definition because it is entirely separated from the goodness of any given work of art. I believe that things that are bad can be great, though it's admittedly harder. Similarly, I think that something extremely good is not necessarily entitled to greatness. I think that My Dress-Up Darling is a good show. This second season, I think it's been a really good show, but never did great cross my mind. I watch a lot of romance anime. It's no knock to this show, but there wasn't exactly a ton of new ground broken thus far. I was happy to watch a really good idea executed on at a high level for the rest of this season, and then move on, as we must do with any anime. But the 5th episode of this season, 800 million, changed all of that. This episode was great in my eyes. And in a funny way, I think that the parts of it that made it great actually detracted from its goodness a bit. But what do I mean by that? And how could this anime keep being great moving forward? Let's talk about it. The first and most obvious eccentricity of this episode is the camera movement. Our perspective is in near constant motion through the entire episode, and not little pans left to right, little zoom-ins, tricks to keep the static shots interesting. These are aggressive, scene-driving movements, and they apply to every kind of shot. Close-ups, wide shots, singles, doubles, regular art style, super stylized cutaways. We are flying around the set, as it were. Sometimes they link into one another, like the keys into the school shot here. Sometimes they clash, like with this scene. They're often used to completely remove cuts that would fit in naturally. Instead of those practically invisible cuts, we soar around like a hawk through these scenes. The backgrounds are more detached from the characters than normal, giving a lot of these shots a distinctly 3D feel to them, but not in a CG sort of way. Look at Marin walking across the room right here. It's both familiar and different. It's almost in an uncanny valley of camera movement. Another thing I love is how this camera movement is not attached to one specific tone. Early on, it is deployed to build tension, in a style reminiscent of campy horror. Moments later, when Marin is thinking about her love for Gojo, it is used to capture perfectly the hectic nature of her thinking. And then right after that, it's used for a more typical montage sequence. It transcends the myriad of moods that My Dress-Up Darling bounces between, making it more of a technique than a trick. A technique you can deploy in any number of circumstances. A trick is something you use once or twice when the time is right, lest it gets old. Look at this shot. We've all seen rack focuses before, and we've all seen camera pans. But this is so cool. It's taking a very natural sequence of a few close-up shots and pushing them together. The arc of the camera is so harsh. If most editing is meant to tie things together as smoothly as possible, this is in stark opposition to that. The shots aren't even all uniform. Here, right after, everyone is in the same focus, even though they're clearly at different depths. And right after, another huge camera movement, with a ton of focus racking. Again, through the lens of pure uniqueness, I've not seen anything like this. So the camera moves like crazy. That's the obvious thing that stood out. What adds to the specialness of this episode is also how awesome the substance is. I've spent the past few weeks talking about how nice it is having real side characters in this story, but this episode pulls so many of them to the fore and gives them a huge injection of character and comedy. Marin's friends interact not just with Marin, but with Gojo too. Noa in particular was really funny in her limited runtime. We are getting callbacks to Amane on top of it, an awesome through line from earlier to now. And most of all, Gojo's grandfather plants the seeds that bloom at the end of the episode, about needing to rely on others. In Season 1, we got moments like this, but they felt heavier-handed. Here, finally, these core emotional concepts were truly woven into the story of the episode itself. And that was like plugging the message into an amplifier. Not only does Gojo's growth feel natural and impactful, it pulls him even closer to those around him. The synergy of all of the moving parts here was masterful. Last, but definitely not least, is the Marin-Gojo dynamic in this episode. For my money, the best of the series. The louder moments we've touched on already, but it was the quieter ones that I found to be the most effective. Marin trying to sew a button on, and Gojo's reaction were so understated but so clear. The embarrassment of Marin, the charmed face of Gojo, I loved it all. I really enjoyed getting to see Gojo and Marin as a team again. Just like with Amane back in episode 2, when we put these two in front of others, it really pushes them together. I don't think it's a coincidence that an episode with this many friends and family around happened to also feature some of the best moments in our main romance. Now, if you remember from the intro, I said that there was some bad to this greatness. I'll be honest, the first 5 minutes of this episode were more than a little jarring. And even now, after having watched the episode a couple of times, the camera flying around can be a bit much in particular shots. But when it comes down to it, I really haven't seen anything like it, especially in the romance genre, even in the other episodes of its own season. I do think that makes it special, and not just because of the flashy visuals. Tying them into the great writing and lovable characters of this show is what really made the magic. That's why I truly believe that this is the first great episode of My Dress Up Darling, and I can't wait to see if there's any more to come. What did you think though? I'm really curious to know if the crazy camera work was off-putting or enticing to you. Let me know in the comments below, and if you want to see more My Dress Up Darling content, or just more anime content in general, liking and subscribing will keep you in the loop. As always, I'm SlamAnime, and have a great rest of your day.